Hey guys, welcome back to Walking the Way podcast, where we share faith-based business owners and talk about their testimonies, their business testimonies, and ultimately share the gospel. I'm your host, Josie, and today we're here with Nick Vaughn. He is a firearms instructor out here in Paris, California. And Nick, if you wouldn't mind telling the viewers a little bit more about yourself and your business.
My name is Nick Vaughn. I started my business a couple years ago. I just really enjoy, teaching people and just the rewarding aspect of helping people, that are firearms owners that want to actually become more proficient. And so started my business and I offer private lessons out here, basically weekly. And yeah.
Awesome. Sweet. And then how would you say, because we're going to get right into it, we're going to get right into the faith-based part.
Okay.
How would you say that God has really shown up in your life and in your business and kind of told you that he wanted you to follow this calling?
I think right off the bat, just getting started, one of the big hurdles as anybody in the firearms industry is having a place to call home, like a home range. They're pretty limited around here, and it's not like people may think where you just go open a range or, something like that. So I just kind of prayed over the situation when I had an opportunity to kind of go out on my own, I guess. And the owner of this range, gave me the green light. And yeah, just from there, it was like kind of like just the biggest hurdle right there was off the bat was just overcome for me. And so here I am. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Where does the passion of firearm instructing come from for you?
Really just like to help people, that value human life and want to help, or be better defenders of just themselves or their families. I just enjoy that and just the rewarding aspect of helping people go from like that victim status to being able to be an asset to themselves and to society. So,
Awesome. And I know you have a pretty powerful testimony. Would you be up for sharing that with the viewers?
yeah. So, personally, I was raised in a Christian home and, grew up going to church and all that stuff. And, my walk was, bumpy like a lot of people is. There was no significant moment where I felt like I became a Christian. I don't feel like I can ever remember a time without God being a part of my life. And here recently, I think about a couple years ago, my son was diagnosed with cancer, and I think that was really like the turning point where I kind of just like went all in. So on September 11th of 23, my son Gadsden was diagnosed with leukemia, just kind of out of nowhere, and I think it kind of just revealed my foundation. So ever since then, like things have really changed for me and my family. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy. And how is he doing right now?
Praise God, he's in remission, or was labeled in remission 30 days after starting treatment, and now he's cancer free. He finished treatment on December 6th. I think he rang the bell.
Wow.
And all that, and now we're just going through the follow-up stuff and checking, his blood moving forward. And the last time we were in there 3 months ago, his labs couldn't have looked better. And so he's doing all the normal kid things, doing jujitsu and all that stuff. So it's definitely been a big change from how the previous few years went with him going through chemo and all that stuff and hospital stays and not feeling the best and all that stuff. So yeah.
Wow. And how old is he?
He just turned 8. So yeah.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is crazy. Praise God.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. So it was a crazy time. Like I said, it really came out of nowhere. And we just kind of ended up, he had some little issues going on. He had some pain in his legs, and we just kind of were like, well, what's going on? And he ended up having a doctor's appointment. And at the doctor's appointment, he kind of looked at him and he was like, hey, I can't really tell you what's wrong with your son, but you need to take him to Rady's in San Diego right now. And we were just like, he has sore legs. And so we got in the car, we drove, an hour and a half down to Rady's, and got down there, sat in the ER, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, we're just down here for no reason. Like, I just want to get home. I left work and all that stuff. And I went out to go grab some food, a little store like right outside of the ER. And all of a sudden my wife texted me and was like, hey, the doctor's in here, said she wants you in here. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. And, sounded like maybe it's a thing. Based on that. So I walked in, the doctor looked down at the ground, looked up with tears in her eyes and said, your son has cancer. And we're like, cancer? I mean, she said the word leukemia, but I knew right off the bat, obviously what leukemia was. And it was weird. I could tell you this, like, that was the first time I ever experienced that peace that goes beyond understanding in that moment where it was like,
Really?
like I felt like I should just be like broken on the floor. And I looked at my wife and she looked at me and we're like, he's going to be okay. And we both were like, yeah, we know. It was crazy. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was the moment that I thought would break me was just like the most revealing moment, on my foundation and my faith. It was pretty significant. So I'll never forget that for sure.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is insane. So you have to have a really strong faith for that to have that fully like peaceful feeling when even just hearing that news.
Yeah. I mean, all glory to God for any ounce of faith that I have. He showed up in, other times in my life in multiple different ways. And this was just one of those things where, if you would have told me I would have been able to withstand that, I would have just been like, no parent can handle that. Like I see other people out there that have, those testimonies or whatever. And I'm just like, there's no way I can handle that, and it was the craziest thing. And then, every step of the way throughout, it was like, I just felt like God just kept showing me his hand in like, really tangible ways and just making it till there was like no doubt in my mind going throughout treatment. But
Wow.
yeah, even before that, it's kind of weird. I was kind of, I don't know, I guess we could call it like in a lukewarm phase of my faith, like we've all been before. And, uh, like 3 days before that, I don't know, I just felt like God, like, just really going like, hey, like, let's go all in. And I didn't really have anything crazy going on in my life, and sometimes that's when we really turn back to the Lord. And I just felt that. So it was kind of funny. On Instagram, I just decided to make this post kind of like professing that, and it's still there. I think I posted on like September 8th, and if you go back, if anybody cares to verify, but, I just put, the time for half-hearted Christianity is over. And, I didn't really post much faith-based stuff before that. And then, I just kind of felt, even leading up to doing that, like making that post, that something was coming. Like there was like this storm brewing in my life, that I almost felt like I needed to kind of get back to that point, or even maybe to the next level, like with my faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even before that, there was a moment where I came home from work one day, and, this was, I just maybe like 6 months before this. And I came home and I sat down, and, my wife looked at me and was like, hey, ask Gadsden what he said he wants to be when he grows up today. And I was like, I sat down, he sat on my lap, and, he looked up at me and he smiled. He's like, I want to be a pastor. And we're like, we go to church and stuff, but like, I never like prompted him to say that. I never kind of like steered him like, hey, this is, you should consider this or anything like that. And he's 5, mind you. Right. So, it was like, what 5-year-old says that, number one. And number two, I was just like, I almost felt like in that moment, 6 months or whatever before, God was like, buckle up. Like,
Wow.
this is, if this is, a thing, and he's professing this from probably not his own accord, I felt like, maybe that was God stirring in his little 5-year-old heart.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that, I kind of just heard God go like, buckle up, And so I looked at him and I started crying at the dinner table. My wife's like smiling, like, oh, like, that's cool, huh? And I'm like, I think something's coming. I didn't tell her that at the time, but I just felt like in my spirit, like there was rough times ahead. And, yeah. And then lo and behold, it turns out he got diagnosed with leukemia several months later. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah. And that was one of the other things in that ER, like when everything happened, it was like, I knew, like, and it was like, almost like I knew that something was coming, and I knew, and then as soon as the doctor said that, I was like, this is it, and so, yeah, my life will never be
Wow.
the same after that. So,
That's crazy. So you
yeah.
heard like God was telling you like buckle up, and that was before you heard the news.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I felt like maybe, him saying that about the pastor thing, was like the first kind of like, okay, kind of hint. I don't know. I don't want to call it like, I'm not saying that I had like some prophetic thing or anything like that. I'm just saying that I felt like, God was preparing me for something. And then, yeah, once we heard that news, I'm like, okay, like this is it. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's insane. I do feel like it's a little prophetic though. Like it's, like he told you to buckle up and you listened and
Yeah.
but it's almost like you said that peace that surpasses all understanding. It's
Yeah.
like you were told that, so it's almost like God was preparing you
Mm-hmm.
for what to deal with, but it's insane that you have that testimony to where you were like, I put my faith in God,
Mm-hmm.
and just to see how he worked through your son that's amazing.
Yeah. It was, just like I said, just totally out of left field. And I think for me, a big thing of what it did is it revealed like not only like my foundation in faith, but my wife's and my whole family's, throughout the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
it was like I didn't know it was there, and that's solid. Not to like pat myself on the back. God gets all the credit for any ounce of faith or
Right.
me being called according to His will. But yeah, I guess I never really saw it on that level until being in the middle of that whole storm. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So do you feel, was there a time in that though where I mean, obviously that's a really hard time to go through for anybody. Do you think that was there any point where your faith was tested? And if so, how did you kind of come back to God within that?
I don't want to say it was ever really tested. There was some rough times where I did ask the why question and stuff like that. But like I said, like before all this happened, like I just knew like there was a purpose in it. Um, and shortly after that, so what it looks like with leukemia or some cancers like leukemia, it's like they basically, come up with a treatment plan once you're diagnosed. And you go through like several years of chemotherapy. And I had a doctor explain it to me like this, like they're saying like chemo is like a weed killer. And the more you spray it, the less chance of the weeds coming back. Right.
Okay.
So it's a long duration, like right off the bat, they're like, this is going to be like a 3-year process. And it's like, that's a long time, like
Yeah.
3 years. Right. And so shortly after that, like his first initial diagnosis, we had to live on site at Rady's for like about a month. And then we were living in the hospital. And once we got out, we had like been cleared to come back home, up this way. And then we would have to go back weekly and sometimes multiple times in a week for his treatment and chemo and different things and tests and labs and all that stuff. And one of the first times, if not the first time we were driving back in there, it was just a weird feeling like driving back down there after we felt like we kind of escaped, right?
Yeah.
And I threw something on my phone, just on YouTube. I listened to like some sermons and stuff like that, like whatever pops up. And I really like Jack Hibbs. And so one of his sermons from like that previous week popped up, or it was like a little thing maybe from just his YouTube channel, not like a full sermon. And the title was How to Pray. And it was just popped up and I started listening to it. And we made it like 15 minutes down the road. And he was just kind of talking about like what our posture of our heart should be and our approach in our prayer. And one of the things that he said, it was crazy. I'll never forget. We're driving down the 215, me and my wife listening to this thing. And he's like, and I have parents come to me and they're like, hey, my son just got diagnosed with leukemia. Like, what do I do? And we're just like, really right now?
Like that's
Really?
crazy.
Like of all the things and all the days and all like just, okay. And what he said was, number one, he kind of encouraged people to not want to know all the details and not want to like figure it out and get into like the scientific nitty gritty of like having it all work out. He says that when he has people come to him and ask for prayer, he asks for less information, right? He just wants to pray in faith. And if he knows all the numbers and the labs and the things, it kind of detracts from that. And right off the bat, that was very comforting because I didn't want to like, knowing me, like dig into all that stuff.
Right.
And so he goes on to say, like if you're already a believer and you find yourself in something like this, right? That's God implanting you possibly for somebody else, right? So maybe it's a nurse or a doctor or somebody that needs to see your faith, as you go throughout that. And that when he said that, I looked at my wife. I'm like, this is it. Like it's not for us. It's not about us at all. So we just kind of were like, yeah, so we just tried to do our best to kind of, be a reflection of him in every step of the way. Like we were in there, um, praying as they're, accessing his port with the needle and giving him injections
Oh
and
my
stuff like
goodness.
that. And
Yeah.
like, this is all new to him. So no kid likes the needle pokes and all that stuff. I don't even like needle pokes.
Yeah.
And so every time it got to one of those situations, we would stop and he would say, "Dad, will you pray?" And so I'd pray right there in front of the doctors and the nurses. And like some of the times, like, I could just see like, that was a thing for them in that moment where it was like, I don't know, maybe it made them think or just go like, man, like these people are in this situation. I'm helping them, I'm here with them. And this is like their go-to default reaction. So I can't help but think it made an impact on one of them, and not to my credit at all. It's like, just God using us in that situation. So, to answer your question, no, I don't really ever feel like there was a moment where I'm like, man, like, is this for real? It was just like, no, I'm here for somebody else. And that's how we're operating.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing, because you were quite literally, like, God was preparing you for it, helped you through it by literally, I fully believe that he supplied that podcast or YouTube video or whatever you watched, just for you guys, because it's crazy how whenever we have faith and we pray about things, because I'm sure you were in prayer a lot during that process to where God will answer our prayers, whether we're praying for even just like comfort or reassurance. Like whenever we see some things across our social media page, stuff like that, I fully believe like God is trying to reach you through some way, shape, or form. And so that's pretty awesome that he showed you that. Because I fully believe that, especially when we go through trials, most of the time it's not about us.
Yeah.
It could be about somebody else that needs to see that, or somebody else that needs to be impacted. And it's ultimately like our responsibility to keep our faith and carry across through those super, super rough moments.
Yeah, I think honestly where I've kind of arrived, on, even throughout, even the middle of it, I think where I arrived was that like suffering, for the Christian is a blessing. Like it's, you steward like those things because God trusted you that you were going to exemplify him throughout, not like, some people where I think one big thing that I kind of have like a bone to pick with is like that whole like warrior mentality, where we go through something and everybody's like, oh yeah, like you're going to be a warrior. And like you see the cancer sickers and all that stuff that's like cancer like warrior and this and that. And I think I heard that word multiple times, like right off the bat, like he's so tough, he's going to be a warrior. You guys got this. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I can't control the outcome with my mindset of cancer, like no matter how tough I think I am. And, so we just kind of rejected that. There was a little bit there too with some friends that I made on Instagram that kind of encouraged us in that, and just looked at, our situation, and they kind of shared their testimony about, this guy's wife had stage 4 cancer, and she was talking about how she rejected that. And he sent me the video of them kind of breaking down their why and like the biblical reasons on why that they didn't kind of take that stance in her battle. And it made perfect sense to me. So I've had people, come and ask like, man, like, how are you bearing the weight of this thing? And I'm like, I'm not. Like, I'm really not. And honestly, to that note, like there were some days where, people were like, how are you grinding this out? And I'm like, I'm not. Like, instead of praying for like strength and grinding out these tough days, I literally would pray on the way to the hospital every time we had to take him there for treatment that it would be a fun day. Like, I didn't let Satan steal the days from us. Like, it was like, and I'll tell you this, like some of the funnest days were in the hospital room, hanging out with some of the nurses, watching him laugh with a needle sticking out of his chest and all that stuff, and just playing video games and hanging out and reading the Bible together and just stuff like that. And so I never allowed that to like steal our joy. So yeah, I didn't really take that mindset of that warrior thing. I would just more or less like, we're just resting in this, trying to be a reflection of God and taking it day by day.
Wow.
So
That's insane. What you said earlier with the suffering is one of like the biggest blessings. I never heard that before, and I'm gonna keep that one, because
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
honestly like that is so true. Because if we change our mindset on what's going on and think of like what God is trying to teach us in these moments, like through the mountains and through all the things that He's throwing at us in our faith in order to refine us into that person He wants us to be, like you have to change your mindset, and you have to kind of think, instead of like, why me, why not me, that's really good. I'm keeping that. That's a good one. What do you think, because you mentioned that you said you didn't pray for strength. What did you pray for?
Honestly, I just pray that God would let people see Him in us.
Wow.
And that was it, like we tried to do little things, like we tried to strike up conversations with nurses and stuff like that, to where, we can maybe spark a little conversation. And there was a handful of them throughout where, nurses shared that they were believers too. Some of them prayed with us, stuff like that. And yeah, I just asked that God would just have His hand over the situation. And when I did that, it kind of just took all that stress away, like, one of the things, that I kind of dealt with in the beginning for a brief second was like, I'm the guy that doesn't believe anything like in Western medicine, and I don't vaccinate my kids and all that stuff. Right. So I'm like, cool. Like there's gotta be some like herbal remedy to cancer. Right. And, I had, people like my mom going like, well, let's get a second. I'm like, no, we're not getting a second opinion. My son has cancer. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to pray that if for whatever reason this isn't the route or the path forward for us and my family and my son's healing, that God would intervene. And I trusted that. Like, and I got to the point where I had people in my family going like, hey, like chemo's not good. I was reading about it and all this stuff. I'm like, it's what we have. It's what God provided. And if He doesn't want to have it, here's where I'm at. I'm going to pray, and that if it's not God's will, that the doctor's car is going to break down on the way to the hospital to give it to him. The power is going to go out at the hospital. So the pumps that are going to pump the chemo into my son don't work. Like I just trusted God on that level. And that's where I left at. And every step of the way, we just showed up. That was another thing that Jack Hibbs talked about. He's like, hey, if this is, what you're in and this is what they're telling you to do, then show up and do it. And that's kind of what we did. We just kind of trusted that. So, yeah.
That's powerful, to have faith in even like the hardest times and just fully surrender everything and just give it to God. Like it's up to you. I feel like that's really inspiring for, I feel like, other people in their faith, other Christians out there who, are going through tough times. It reminds me of, whenever you go through hard times, when you get squeezed by life, what comes out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does your faith come out, or does the world come out?
Yeah.
And do you freak out because of what the world is throwing you instead of what God might be teaching you? That's kind of what comes to my head. It almost reminds me of like the story of, Abraham and his son
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like, going up to that hill, like, I guess I'm going to sacrifice him. And then, God was like, no, you don't actually have to do that. That's kind of what comes to my head. And that, was there a specific story or book in the Bible that kind of spoke to you during that time?
I think in trials, everybody likes to like quote Job and stuff like that, because it's like the worst of the worst story, right? But honestly, as far as a story goes, there wasn't like a story that we really leaned on. There was some times where, just certain things were just like perfect timing, right? You open the Word and it's like the Bible's the only book that reads you, and God gives you like something timing wise where it's just like I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think any Christian can or should believe in coincidences. Mm-hmm. But there was just some things, but no specific story, to be completely honest. But we did really, the people that I mentioned before that kind of shared their testimony about the guy's wife having stage 4 cancer, they kind of encouraged us to read Psalm 91 and make it our prayer. And so Psalm 91 kind of became our thing. We read it all the time. My son can recite from memory like a good 80% of it, like
Wow.
unprompted. And it's not like 3 verses. It's long.
Okay. Do you know it from heart?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to disappoint everybody. Like, my memory just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, once I start reading it, yeah. But yeah, Psalm 91, it's just basically just kind of asking God to protect you, and stuff like that. So check it out, Psalm 91. If you're going through something, that's your psalm for your trial.
Is that the one the you're walking through the valley of the?
No,
No.
a different one. I think that's I'm gonna guess and look really bad, but I think that's maybe 23. I don't know.
Okay.
That's a guess, but it's not
Yeah.
that. It's not that one.
Okay.
But yeah,
I feel like a lot of people will quote that one, so it's nice to hear if there's another one.
yeah, no.
I can't pull anything out either, but I'll put it in the video for sure.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Was there anybody you think that was trying to influence you in this whole thing, maybe trying to push worldly views onto you, trying to almost make you not be so in your faith during that time?
Honestly, I can't say that there was, and if there was, then God protected me from those people, or those things. Definitely, like and like any time in life, there's temptations and there's things to deal with. I felt like I had more strength to kind of like kind of deal with those things.
Yeah.
Because you're in the middle of a trial. How are you going to call it to God if you're messing up in your life, and it's like one of those things where you don't want your prayers to be hindered by your actions or whatever. But yeah, there was no specific people or anything like that. Like I said in the beginning, it was like some of that stuff where it's like the warrior mentality was like the extent of that, and we like immediately rejected that. Like, I never corrected anybody when they said that. Like, I understand the thought and the gesture to kind of voice that, and I'm just like, cool, thanks. Like, yeah, he's the toughest guy I know, like my son, and like that's what I left it at. But yeah, I mean, God just showed up in so many different big ways. Like, I have so many stories of things where it was like, if there was a bump in the road or something or some kind of thing where it was just like, if I started to kind of shake a little bit at the situation, God would just do something crazy. To kind of just remind me of his presence.
Yeah.
I think some pastors refer to those as like hugs from the Holy Spirit or kisses from heaven.
Yeah.
Right. And I really try to stay away from that like sensationalism like aspect of Christianity, but like we've all had experiences where it's like undeniable things. Right. And one of them, if you want me to share one.
Yeah. Go for it.
So I had a friend reach out in the beginning of my son's diagnosis and was like, hey man, I've told this story on Instagram in a little video that I made just because it's too funny to not tell. But he reached out like first week we were in the hospital. He's like, hey, what's your son's room number? I want to send him flowers. And I was like, yeah, I don't think we can get flowers in here, like it's a hospital, there's cancer patients on this level. They probably don't let that in. And he's like, okay. And then like that was over the phone. He's asking, and I get off phone and I was like, you want to send my son flowers? Like, dude, that's gay. And I kind of laughed, right?
Yeah.
And, but that really stuck with me, and I was like, started thinking like that was just me trying to be like tough or macho or whatever, right? Like, and then I was like, that is a cool gesture for anybody, right? And a couple weeks go by, we get out of the hospital and we're staying down in Oceanside at a family member's condo, and I decided to go stock the fridge. So I go to Trader Joe's. I like to shop there. So we go in, or I go in by myself, and I was kind of driving there and I was like, man, I've been in that hospital only around people that like my family, doctors, nurses that know what we're going through are really trying to like comfort us and stuff. And so I'm like, I don't even know if I can go fake it for like a cash register interaction with somebody. Like everything's all okay, right?
Yeah.
So if you've been to Trader Joe's, first thing you see when you walk in is flowers, right?
Yeah.
So I immediately thought of my friend and asking that, that he wanted to send my son flowers. And I walked by him and I just kind of laughed and smiled to myself. And I did my rounds in the store, and like a couple other times I'm like, you should get him flowers. It's not gay, right? And hopefully I could say that on this, but if not, you can edit it out.
No, you're good.
And I was like, it's not gay. I should just get them, right? That'd be
Yeah.
cool to be like, hey, like me and your mom got you flowers for the first time in your life. It was right after you got diagnosed with cancer, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I just didn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to it. So I go around the store and like I get up to the cash register and I'm like almost there and I'm like, I need another minute. Like I can't go fake this conversation like, hey, how you doing? Good, you know,
You're
like
fine, yeah.
everything. And then Trader Joe's is known for like trying to engage with the people at the register.
Right.
So I finally just go up there, right? And I load my stuff on the thing and chick rings me up and she's like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, did you just move to the area? You know, we have a lot of regulars that have never seen you before. And I'm like, no, I'm just down here. And she's like, oh, so you're on vacation? And I'm like, no, like I just got, you know, we're staying at a family member's condo. And she just kept like prying. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing right now? Like, and I just kind of was like, yeah, like, you know, my son, he has some medical stuff going on, so we're down in the area. You know, I just left it at that. Like, I don't even know why I said that. And then I really just tried to zone out on my phone and like get distracted in the conversation. And I looked down at my phone and I was like already struggling to keep it together. And I looked back up and there's like a thing of flowers in the cart. And I was like, looked at her and she just smiled and she's like, we wanted you to have these flowers. And I was like,
Wow.
whoa, okay. And it was just crazy, right? Like that was one of many things. Like there was so many other little stories like that where people just like walked up and prayed for me and stuff like that, or just came and encouraged me. So I felt like every time I needed one of those things, like it was there, you know? And so that kind of helped me go, okay, God, I see you in this. I see it. It's tangible for me. And yeah, so that's just one of those little occurrences, but I thought that was pretty significant and timely, exactly what I needed when I needed it, you know, to encourage me. So yeah.
Do you believe that, because there's, you know, a thing that some people say that, you know, God works through, you know, he sends down some angels and those angels sometimes, you know, they work through certain people in the exact time that you need it. Do you feel like that was one of those things?
Maybe not that time specifically where you're, you never know when you're entertaining angels kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that. I think for whatever reason that it just, you know, God had his hand on that and just kind of gave that to me. I have had other things in my life where I felt like there were those moments where it was like, wait, was that person really just there? Or was that like one of those things, you know? Some pretty interesting ones, but you know, none of that stuff really to that degree, throughout his treatment or anything like that. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Have you ever had something like that happen with kind of like your work, to know kind of like I'm on the right path in that sort of sense?
With what I do out here on the range, I really do like pray and ask God to filter everybody that comes out. And there was plenty of times where, you know, even in the last couple of years where I felt like God sent people to encourage me. And, you know, I had a guy come out that had taken a couple of sessions with me and we never really talked about much. We just kind of got down to business with shooting and stuff. And then one day we were kind of hanging out in the back at the end of the lesson. And he's like, hey man, he's like, you know, my brother had leukemia when he was 5 and he's fine. He's like 40 something. He has kids, he's married, he's healthy. Wow. And I was just like, in that moment, I was like, I needed that right now, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of other people that I saw just outside of like this, but yeah, that was one of the things that encouraged me. I seen other stories, you know, of people that had been through stuff and then they came out on the other side, God healed them, and, you know, they're able to live like perfectly healthy, happy, normal lives beyond cancer, which I feel like we don't really hear about that. Like so many people think cancer is just like a death sentence or it's going to change your life forever, you know? But yeah, like, I don't know, to answer your question, yeah, God's definitely sent some people out here to encourage me. And then there's been plenty of times where I've had the opportunity to work with people where I felt like you know, maybe not just like spiritually, like we've had some conversations where people came out and, you know, we started talking about faith, and that's what the whole lesson turned into.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I'm like, you know, when that's happened a handful of times, I'm like, hey, like you're paying me to teach you how to shoot. And they're like, this is better. And I'm like,
Oh.
okay, like it's up to you. If you want to talk about God, and pay me for it, like, I don't know if I feel right about it, but I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
With all of this, I mean, comes intense, you know, there's a difference between discipline and motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, you know, because when was your son healed?
So he got basically labeled in remission after 30 days of treatment. So what they do is they do 30 days of chemo, and then they do another bone marrow sample to see how you responded to the treatment.
Okay.
So at the 30-day mark, they actually labeled him in remission. So that meant that 30 days after diagnosis, they detected like 0.0001, like the lowest possible number, like some residual cancer cells. And so they're like, cool, like he's in remission. And it's kind of funny because at that appointment, I didn't realize the gravity of that, which is good because it probably was God protecting me from stressing out. Yeah. And we walked in, and like the doctor was like, he was one of the coolest guys in the beginning. Like I kind of was like, I don't know about this guy. Mm-hmm. And he walked in, he's like, cool, we're in remission. And I was like, wait, what? Like, yeah. And he said it, and I looked at my wife, and she just smiled, and I was like, oh, like I didn't even realize the gravity of this appointment. So at that point, it's, you know, he was labeled in remission basically a month after September 11th of 23.
Wow.
And then, like I said earlier, with cancer, they kind of look at it or view it as like weed killer, where it's a duration of time of continuing to apply that, you know, to keep it away. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you know, even though he's in remission, we still have 2 years and 2 months of treatment to go through.
Oh, wow.
And then on December 6th, he was able to ring the bell to complete his treatment. And then after that, he had a port, you know, surgically put in that he got all his chemotherapy through, and the port came out on I think it was the day before Christmas Eve, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So yeah, he had that surgery, but the 6th is kind of like the official end to the treatment, which is like the big standout day to me. You know, as we're going throughout treatment, they're like checking his labs and stuff, and the labs would tell, like, if God forbid, you know, he relapsed and stuff like that. But yeah, so basically a month after being diagnosed, they were already calling him in remission. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's, you know, I don't want to give any credit to Western medicine, because God's responsible for all of it, right? And like that's a lot of, you know, people don't really kind of do the math on that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so looking back, it was like, man, like that's just crazy to me. Like that we have a way to deal with this, and unfortunately, it doesn't go so well for all people. You know, there's people we were in the hospital next to a kid that didn't make it, you know?
Oh, wow.
And he was younger. That was probably the hardest part of our whole journey, is like, hey, there's this kid next door. We connected with his family on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And then like a couple months later, his mom posted that he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was probably one of the hardest times throughout. But yeah, so to answer your question, he was technically healed, I guess. If remission is healing, it's like right a month after treatment started.
That's not very common at all, right?
So it is. And I mean, I don't know the numbers and stuff. So here's the thing, like when they gave us that, they're basically like laying out these things that kind of tell like the probable outcomes.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, so he's under this age. It wasn't found in his spinal cord. It wasn't here. He's this and blah, blah, blah. And they had like all these things. And when they laid it all out, they kind of, they kind of threw this number out there, and like, so there's like a 96 or something % chance that he'll go through treatment and never have to worry about leukemia again.
Okay.
And so when they laid all that out, all I heard in my mind that it wasn't 100, right? Yeah. And I'm like, 96, that sounds pretty dang good. Like that's like an A+, you know, like we're looking pretty good. But all I could think about, you know, was the 4. So that was, you know, definitely kept me praying, kept me on my knees, kept me, asking, God to continue to heal him and stuff. So,
Right.
but yeah.
Wow. And that, I mean, that's just an amazing testimony in itself. And especially since you've brought that, not bringing it to your work, but you have that story to share with people when people ask you about it, or if they come, you never know who you might impact at your own work.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. Have you, because, there's a big difference between discipline and motivation. And especially, going through all of what you did, what do you think has kind of kept you, because I see on Instagram, you're always like going hard and always waking up super early and all the things. What kind of keeps you more disciplined than motivated, even on those days where you feel like, not doing X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, honestly, it's something that I've been doing for a really long time. I'm going on like 22 years of waking up at 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And that's just my thing. For me as a parent, like my drive to do that is so I don't take away from any time with my kids. So when I get home from, work or being out here or whatever the case may be, like I want it to be about them. Unfortunately, I am pretty tired after waking up at 3 doing that, coming out here and then going home. But that honestly is one of my big driving factors of doing that. It doesn't matter when you do that stuff, as long as you do it and you make it a priority. But like for me personally, doing those things like lifting weights or martial arts, jiu-jitsu, running, it's one of those things where I really try to make it about like time in prayer. And I'm not a runner. Like if you looked at me, you'd never think that I run. Like I don't want to look like a runner. Like, no offense to anybody that's a runner. But I think there's nothing like waking up at 3 a.m., throwing some running shoes on, running in the dark by yourself, just you and God, no phone, even though I take my phone, but I throw it in my running vest once I start.
Right.
And of course, check in and let everybody know that I'm on the road. But there's nothing like that time where the rest of the world is sleeping and it's you and God. Like I can't tell you how many times like I felt like that's my best time in prayer, no distractions. So I don't want to say addicted to that, but I know the benefit of getting out there and doing those things while the world is still quiet,
Yeah.
And then for me, like I like to read my Bible every morning too, and that's probably my biggest struggle with discipline. Sometimes I'm like all about it and I'll get sucked into whatever I'm reading, and I'll be doing a study or going to Bible study at church, and I'm like excited about it. And other times, like I'll read like one proverb and be like, all right, I'm done. Today's just not, my mind is just not there or something. Right. And to just make it to where it's at least something that I do daily. That's my goal, to be the most disciplined with that. But yeah, like when I lift weights or do anything like that, a lot of times I'm listening to like a sermon or like listening to worship music. And I kind of just make it, that is, not about me. It's about my time with God. And that's kind of where I'm able to not just skip out on it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is there, because it's funny that you say like where you sometimes struggle with discipline isn't even like the really physically like hard things.
No.
It's more of the connecting in the spirit with God by reading the word and actually like being there. Because I know, I've tried, like, when I wake up super early, if I wake up, at like the crack of dawn, I have to go do something physical. If I try to mentally, like, dive into the word, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Do you almost feel like, because to me, and I don't know how with you and your faith, but to me, everything is a lot deeper than it seems. Like, there's a spiritual realm, and there's a deeper meaning behind everything, no matter how small it is. Do you feel like when it comes to that, like when you wake up super early and you're disciplined and you want to read the word, when you can't fully like connect, do you feel like there's a deeper meaning behind that, almost like the enemy trying to just grab on just a little bit,
Yeah, 100%. Like for me personally, I'm thinking about, stuff going on, work, business stuff, all that. And anything that pulls you away from God is a distraction, right?
Yeah.
we all have our things, our businesses, family life problems, things we got to take care of around the house, like the simplest little tasks. And I think that, you know, if we were to really simplify our lives, that our relationship with God should be number one priority. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And anytime, you know, things take away from your time in reading or whatever the case may be, I think, you know, that even if it's a good thing, it's something that, you know, Satan could be using to distract you, right? Because you're like, hey, like, I'm not going to go do some crazy, you know, evil thing right now.
Right.
But I'm going to go do that good task that's going to distract me from what I should be doing. So, yeah, I 100% think that, you know, those things and those times, there is like that battle that goes on. And that's the hard part, is recognizing that, like, even, you know, you could make anything an idol if you really, you know, aren't careful.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, our most righteous act is a filthy rag to God. So even those things that we think are good, you know, because I definitely fall short of that sometimes, where I wake up and it's almost like you could think about it in a worldly sense of being like, oh, well, I got to make sure everything's taken care of in my business as soon as I wake up. So you got to go straight to the phone.
yeah,
But in reality, it's like, what I had to figure out was that once I shut off that voice telling me like, no, you need to go focus on this thing first, and being like, no, I actually don't. I need to go read the Bible first, or just something, you know, connecting with God, whether that's reading the Bible in prayer, whatever it is. Once I kind of switched to that and kind of like turned off that voice in the back of my head, I had that kind of like peace. Like I was like, oh yeah, like I'm fine. Like the world's not ending.
Yeah, no. I think that's one of the toughest things. And if we could, or if I could encourage anybody to stay disciplined in one thing, it's like knowing that your purpose is not your business. Your purpose is not school or work or whatever the case may be. It's you being a reflection of Jesus wherever you're at.
Yeah.
So I think we forget that, you know, like people want to go, oh, like I want God to use me. You know, if you're a believer, I want him to send me here, and you have like, or I want this platform. And it's like, look down at your feet, wherever you're at, that's where God has you. Right. So you're not like looking for something else, like steward where you're at, in that moment to the best of your ability. And then if God sees, you know, or wants to, you know, create increase for you or a bigger platform or whatever, then I think that will come in time.
Yeah.
So many people want to have like influence or be used in like this way that they think that, you know, they should be used, or they think would be cool to be used.
Yeah.
But how about start with the person sitting next to you, right? Like the random person at the grocery store or whatever the case may be.
Trader Joe's cashier.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my gosh, that's a really good message, though. My pastor said, and it kind of stuck with me, be faithful where you are.
Yeah.
And that's so true, because it's like the worldly desires of us want to be like, well, I want to have this business, or I want to go do this. But I feel like God equips the people who aren't ready for it, and he sends those people out. I mean, like the people in the Bible, all the, you know, the apostles, and even Moses, where he was like, I can't, I'm not that good at speaking.
Yeah.
And he was like, you're going to go do it anyways. You're going to lead people to the promised land. He's like, what?
Yeah.
So has that ever been, have you ever felt like Moses in that situation where you're kind of like, I don't feel equipped for this?
All the time.
Yeah.
Like I've never felt like I've looked at the position that God has had me in, like that podcast, right? Like saying we're going through my son's treatment to maybe, you know, be an example to a nurse or a doctor, or let them see him and us. But I think for me personally, questioning my ability is something that we all struggle with, right? Or, you know, or our past or whatever, where you start thinking and, you know, like, well, I did this, or I failed at this, and like all that stuff. But then, like you said, like the people in the Bible, like that did horrible things, and then still like were used by God for his good ultimately. So I like to remind myself of that. And then, you know, if God can speak through a donkey, I think I might have a chance. So yeah. So it's kind of, I think it's a good thing though, because if you did have like that confidence, or if we had confidence in ourselves, then we would want the credit, and I don't think or believe that it's biblical, that we're definitely not designed for glory. The glory belongs to God.
Yeah.
And so if we have like, yeah, I got this kind of mentality, then when it's said and done, yeah, I did that, right? And then
Yeah.
if you're like, I suck, like I don't know what to say, like I'm a failure, and then you're like, God, I'm gonna say it anyways, then he's gonna get the credit a lot easier in that, where it's not like you're a little kid fighting for the credit and trying to take it
Yeah.
from God. When you think you suck, it's a lot easier for him to get the credit.
Yeah, that's so true. I think about that a lot. I mean, even with this whole podcast thing, like I'm not, a professional with this at all whatsoever when it comes to podcasts, but it was something where God was like, "I want you to do it." And I was like, "Okay." But cuz where where I really shine is horse training, and I built up this entire business, and then one day God was like, "I want you to go in a different direction." And it was kind of like, it was killing the flesh to be like, well, I built this thing up. Like, this is something I built. Like, this is something that's really cool. I like doing it. And God was just like, no, I want you to change directions and go somewhere else where you might not be as confident.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been, being faithful where you are and just looking down at your feet and being like, okay, this is where I am. How do I glorify God through that?
Yep. Or in this position, right? I think, I think just kind of just rolling with it, right? And I think too, it kind of reveals and kind of shows if we're doing what we want to do, it's probably not what God wants us to do ultimately, right? Like, so you just said, like I recently, honestly, yesterday, I found myself in this situation, right? And I felt like God was telling me to go do something. It was go just tell some random person that Jesus loves her, right? I just saw it and I just felt like the Holy Spirit prompt me. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to walk up to this random chick and say this,
Yeah.
And I couldn't shake it. And I'm like, all right, let's do some math in your head, right? And I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I know Satan doesn't want me to do this. So the only other driving factor here is God. So I'm like, I'm going to do it, because if I don't, I'm going to be kicking myself that I wasn't obedient.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to be obedient in the things, not because we want increase, but I think that's what God's given us at that time in that moment. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's really powerful, especially like just like being obedient to God and listening to that. Because I feel like any time that we don't want to do something, that is the enemy holding us back from something that God wants us to do.
Yeah. As long as it's something that God would want us to do, right?
Yeah.
I think
have discernment.
that's kind of one of those ways where you can kind of figure that out. Like, and like that little mental like math that I did, in my little situation yesterday. And it's
so
like,
you did tell someone?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll tell the story. So like I went through a really rough patch in life like 15 years ago. And I was like at the gym, and I had been like just in the house for days, like dealing with this situation. Wasn't good. I was in a really, really, really bad place mentally. And I'm like, I need to go to the gym. I need to just get out of the house. So I go to the house, or get out of the house, go to the gym.
Right.
And I get to the gym and I'm like working out, and I'm sitting there on like the little like mat area, just stretching out. And this guy that I always saw in the gym, he would like just always look at me, and I'm like, dude, what are you looking at? And then this, like, I had headphones on, and he walked by, and this had been going on for like a while. And he walked by and he's like, hey, and he kind of waved like, take your headphones off. And I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, hey dude, this is going to sound really crazy, but I'm a Christian, and God's been telling me to talk to you for a long time, and today he's yelling at me to tell you that he loves you. And I was just like, dude, if you only knew. Me and him kind of connected, and we used to talk about God at the gym and stuff like that. But yeah, I was in the gym and I saw somebody, and I thought of that, and I hadn't thought about that for some time. And I just almost, not that I heard God audibly, but I was just like, I can't deny it. And like, I just walked up and I'm like, hey, like, can I bother you for a second? And she's like, yeah, what's up? And I was just like, I told her, I'm like, can I tell you a story? And she's like, sure. She's looking at me like, you are weird, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, like a while ago I was in a really bad place and this guy walked with me at the gym and that was like the perfect moment. And I saw you and I thought of that. And I just felt like God wanted you to know that Jesus loves you.
Mm-hmm.
And she just looked at me and it was just like, I don't know. It was like, there was no like immediate, like, oh, like this is verification. Like, good job, Nick. It was like,
Right.
it was just like one of those things where I didn't know I was just trying to like be obedient and just kind of leave it in God's hands, right? I think a lot of times when we do step out in faith, we have like some expectation and we're like expecting the people that we go and talk to in those instances to just like break down in tears and go like, oh my gosh. And like, will you
Super
pray for me?
cinematic.
Yeah. Right. And I don't think it's as much about those people as it is us being obedient in those moments.
Right.
So yeah, I did go up to her, no credit to my own. And she, she was like, hey, like, I really appreciate you noticing other people in the gym. Like, I think this is a positive thing. She had some different beliefs, which is why I think that, it was maybe for her.
Yeah.
I won't go into detail, but I was just like, hey, like, and she was like, I think you're a really amazing person or something like, I'm like, let me tell you this. I'm the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
If you see any ounce of good in me, it's Jesus. It's not me. And I just kind of was like, hey, I'm sorry if that was weird. I don't know if it makes sense to you right now, but I had to say it. You could think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But hey, and she was like, shook my hand. She's like, I appreciate you. And I left it at that. But yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I feel like it's good to not be like, because I feel like a lot, like some people after that kind of interaction would be like, was that from God? Like, was I supposed to go talk to her if I didn't get that reaction that I thought?
Yeah.
But to us, it's like, we'll never know how God was using us as like a vessel to administer to somebody who might have, she might remember that later down the line.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that what you said wasn't impactful.
Yeah. I think, like I said, it's about obedience, right? And some of us plant seeds or water seeds or whatever. And as long as you're obedient and you feel like God's, prompting you to do the thing, then do it.
Yeah.
On that note of like planting and watering seeds, the one thing that we can't do as Christians is trample on other seeds people have planted, right? So we should really protect our witness. And I think that's something that a lot of us don't do so well, and we've all, been bad examples to people. But I think, if we have a real reverence for God, then we should represent him in all ways at all times. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. And I feel like we shouldn't be scared to still profess Jesus's love for other people, even if they have different beliefs.
Yeah.
Because if the way is narrow, and few people walk on it, then obviously we should kind of expect that most people that we interact with might not be in their faith.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, just not having expectations and just being obedient is like the big thing there, right? But yeah, 100%.
And then what you're saying too about being obedient, that kind of reminds me that, a lot of times we think it's either what do we need to tell somebody or what do they need to hear? And sometimes it's like, well, sometimes it's just being able to answer the call and to, kind of build on that. It could be God preparing you for something bigger. Like, oh, I want you to do this. Are you going to listen? I'm going to have you do this. Are you going to listen to me? And it builds that relationship and it builds that ability to be able to hear God too.
Yeah, I feel like I don't like when people throw the things like that out there and call them a test, but I think it is a test, right? Sometimes it's for us. Sometimes it's to kind of display to you the posture of your heart. I had another story while we're doing storytelling.
Yeah.
I've told this before too, but I was in Target one time and I don't shop there anymore because they're weird. But no, seriously, I was in Target one time with my family and I was walking behind this guy and he had his family there and he had some kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it like satanic looking tattoos. He had like an upside down cross and stuff. And I looked at him and I shook my head. This was years ago before, like my walk has really changed for the better. And I was like being super judgmental, like, oh, this guy has no idea. And I started, like just judging him. And I really felt like God was like, dude, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Like, you should be praying for this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around the store and I saw him again. And I was like honestly offended by like the upside down cross on his leg and all these things. And I was like, man, like, this guy really needs Jesus. And so like I prayed for him walking behind him in the store. And that weekend at church, I'm sitting in church, and at the end, our pastor gives an altar call, and I'm sitting there, and usually at that time I start praying for, whoever needs to respond to the message, that they would have the courage to get up or whatever. And I just felt like God was like, hey, dude, turn around. And I'm like, I don't turn around in church. There's people right behind me. I'm not going to turn around and make eye contact with somebody sitting behind me, especially in this moment, right? And I just felt like God was like, turn around. And I'm like, I'm not turning around.
Yeah.
And he's like, turn around. And I'm like, okay. And I turn around, and it was the guy from Target, absolutely bawling his eyes out with his wife, their kids, and I'm guessing it was like her parents. Everybody in the row crying as he gets up and walks down and goes to the front.
Wow.
And I'm not saying at all that my prayer was responsible for that.
Yeah.
But I can never forget that moment. Like, it was one of those things where I was just like, dude, like, it just changed the way I look at people in general, So, but yeah, I thought that was one of those, crazy significant moments too in my walk that I like to share with people, because like, again, like I said, I don't believe in coincidences, so that for me in that moment where I felt God prompt me to pray for him, and then I saw that happen like literally like the day after, right? And I was just like,
wow. That's definitely not a coincidence that you both were in Target at the same time.
Yeah, and then in the same church the next morning, or if not like a couple days later too, yeah.
Wow, God is so good, and anything that we can think of, he makes even better than we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And that's like one of those things where it's like you're like, maybe I just need to pray for this person because he's got a demonic tattoo. But in reality, it's like, who knows? Prayer is powerful, and that's how you know prayer is powerful too. Because even if God wanted to help, strengthen some of your faith through that by just that situation on your end.
Yeah.
It's like, who knows what that situation was like on his end? Who knows, like, maybe he really needed to hear your prayer, and just in his soul, and then to be able to, go to the same church the next morning. And then, maybe he gave his life to Jesus the next day. Who knows what he did? But still, I think that's insanely powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't deny that. I didn't walk up and pray for him, but I was just literally walking behind him and praying for him. So if I know you, or if I see you in public and I don't know you, chances are I'll probably pray for you behind your back. And hopefully some of my friends are doing the same for me, right? And I mean, I've done that for other people too, where I'm just like, hey, like I've been praying for you. I can't, like, I'm thinking about you a lot. Is everything okay? And they're like, man, I really need prayer right now. Like, something's going on. So yeah.
Prayer, we should be praying behind people's backs, not talking behind people's backs. Yeah, that's, I mean, Jesus literally healed, who was it that, I can't forget. I forgot his name. Pontius Pilate, or whoever it was, healed his son without even being there. So the fact that, like, you can pray for somebody without immediately being like, can I pray for you?
Yeah.
You can still do that, and it's still effective. I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah, you don't need to know their name. God knows their name. I think for me, I remember, like, as a kid driving past car accidents with my mom, and she'd be like, we're praying for them right now. And I'm like, okay, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was normal to me, So, yeah, I think my mom definitely gets a lot of credit for, stuff like that and where I'm at in my walk in general. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, we are running short on time, but this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
If you had something to say to all the viewers out there, whether they're, maybe they're not in their faith, maybe they are, maybe they're a business owner, maybe they're just, trying to get to know God a little bit more, what is one thing that you would say to them, and just as encouragement?
Man, that's such a, you saved the best one, the hardest question to answer for last. Honestly, I don't know. The one thing, like if you don't know Jesus and you're like curious, the challenge that I would give to somebody in that position would just be like, hey God, like if you're real, if you're not sure, challenge him on that. Ask him to reveal himself to you in some form or fashion, and I promise you he will. And I think you can attest to that too, where I think that, ultimately, we're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's the Great Commission, right?
Yep.
So, I think that's our job. That's something that we have the privilege of being part of. But I also don't really believe that I'm personally going to say something that is going to get a reaction or a response from somebody. It's God revealing themselves to him,
Right.
or revealing themselves to them, or himself to them, sorry. So yeah, if you're somebody that isn't sure or on the fence, then I would challenge you to ask God to just reveal himself to you.
Yeah. That's really good. That's a great way to end that. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and make sure you guys stick around and follow Nick on social media. Where can they find you at?
It's at concealed.solutions on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Make sure to sign up for a session with him. You can talk about your faith. You can get some really good shooting lessons too. So, yeah, make sure to stick around. I'm also going to be, posting, we are doing a session after this. So make sure to stay tuned, and check Nick out. And as usual, we will see you on the next one. Have a blessed day.